Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of This Week in Crypto Philanthropy. This is episode 10. We've reached double digits here. My name is Mikhalevsky, Senior Sales Manager here at The Giving Block. It's great to see you this week. We've got a lot to cover. My colleague Pietro Moran is heading to Nashville this week for one of the crypto industry's largest conferences, Bitcoin 2024. On our next episode, we'll likely have a lot of great takeaways from his time on the ground at the conference. But with that, why don't we jump right into today's topics? A few things that we're going to touch on today. Of course, we're always going to start with the crypto price check. We're going to take a look at some donation highlights. We've got a couple stories in the news update about the Ethereum ETFs, and then a cool new survey released by a Bitcoin education nonprofit called the Nakamoto Project. And also wanted to, you'll see on the slide here, I've got my email there. As we start to gather content for the rest of the production cycle, we'd love to hear from you in terms of stories you want us to talk about, perhaps guests, burning questions that you have. It could be anything. So wanted to provide my email there so you can start shooting those questions to the team. Happy to review and go over anything that you might want us to potentially do an episode on or provide some time for in one of our future episodes. Moving on, we are starting to wind down the $500 in Bitcoin promotion when you get started with the Giving Block. So if you are a nonprofit out there still kind of on the fence, should we do this? Again, try to grab this promotion while it lasts. Feel free again to email me too. Hey, can I still get in on the offer? Again, use my email from the last slide. Happy to try to hold the door open for as many nonprofits that want to try to squeeze in. So let's start to take a look at the crypto prices this week. Bitcoin back up to 66,000. Again, we've been seeing some strong rebounding, especially in Bitcoin. But probably the bigger story, and again, we'll do a little bit of update a second, is on the price of Ethereum, trading just under 3,400 as the new ETFs have gone live. It's always going to be a little bit of a chop in the markets there. Taking a look at some other assets, Solana about that 180 mark, and some of the other assets down the list. But really still Bitcoin, Ethereum as the two key players that everybody's watching. Bitcoin won because of all the inflows that we've seen into the ETFs, and certainly the appreciation in the wider market. And then again, very interesting to see what's happening on the ETH side. So we'll continue to monitor that and a couple updates for you later on in the show. Moving on to donation highlights. A ton has been happening in the month of July. If you thought this was a slow summer month while everybody's out at the beach, millions are being donated, and wanted to highlight some of the big donations that we've seen come across the network. You can see the list here. As you read down, of course, some really large major gifts that we continue to see come in every day, every week. So again, if you're out there sort of on the fence, should we do this? If you are looking to grow that major gifts program this year, there are some phenomenal results that people are seeing before we even get into the fall giving season. But about halfway down the list, you see that career services org with that $15,000 GBTC. What that refers to is actually one of those ETF donations. And this is a stock donation, and something that I think we'll see going forward, especially as the year progresses and we get into 2025, as more and more investors are piling into these ETFs and millions of Americans are building this into their portfolio. I bet we're going to start to see a lot more of these stock donations. And just to give our listeners a little bit of a sense of what sort of the year-to-date returns have been like, on average, many of these ETFs, certainly on the Bitcoin side, because the ETFs on the Ethereum side have just launched yesterday, looking at about 20% of those like year-to-date returns. So again, a pretty sizable return on the start of these assets, and so would continue to probably see some of these stock donations, especially if the underlying assets continue to appreciate we might see some of those healthy stock donations continue to come in throughout 2024 and certainly into 2025. Once those assets have been held for a year, then they're even more tax optimized to make those gifts. But really, the headline story for today is, the image that we have here on the screen. One of the crypto communities that we interact with is an organization called Catizen AI. Again, we know the crypto community really well. Our partnership team is phenomenal in terms of engaging not only with donors and nonprofits, but also the crypto, ecosystem. And there's all kinds of Web3 groups, crypto groups out there that are looking to add a philanthropic element into the kinds of things that they're doing. Their communities are very primed for making philanthropic impacts. And so this was a phenomenal donation that came in from Catizen AI to Peta. You can see our social post there on the right side of the screen. And this went absolutely viral. I mean, it's really kind of hard to see, at the bottom of that screenshot there, but there's 52,000 views to this post. And bringing it a little bit back around to kind of like fundraising 101, and for organizations that are out there engaging with communities on socials or just engaging with donors, remember, tag us when those promotions are happening or when you get a great result. We'd love to help boost that message and get it in front of more people, because who knows where we could multiply that generosity out in the community. So if you want to go on social, check it out. It was an awesome result. I think there's more to come from this. And, we may be taking a deeper dive into exactly what occurred here, even in some future episodes as well. So stay tuned for more from us there. So moving on to the crypto news updates for this week. Two pieces that I wanted to touch on. First of all, we talked about the Ethereum spot ETFs that launched just this week. And so far, it's exceeded expectations. Everybody sort of, assumed that, look, this is not this, Ethereum isn't as large as sort of the Bitcoin footprint. So therefore, it's going to have some sort of a percentage of, what we tend to see happening on the Bitcoin side. But it really outperformed even those initial estimates. The inflows for the ETFs on the first day were approaching 600 million, which was far above what those initial estimates were. And even looking at the markets today, a really healthy trading day. In fact, surprising, a lot of the professionals in the space. So perhaps, the demand is going to continue. It's much larger than what they originally thought. And again, something that we're going to continue to monitor as the weeks and months take on. The second story here is a really interesting survey that came out from a Bitcoin education nonprofit called the Nakamoto Project. We'll put a link to not only their website, but to the survey that we're going to talk about here in the show notes. But they put out a quarterly survey that shows Bitcoin ownership demographics. So again, we're just talking about Bitcoin here, and this is across a variety of factors. But because we're in election year, I thought this was a really interesting statistic to share. And what you see on the graph there is this is Bitcoin ownership by political orientation. And as you can see across the spectrum, I sort of blew up some of the figures there. Very liberal, 21.9%, versus very conservative, 17.6%, and neutral at 14.3%. Really, just the headline here is that Bitcoin is a completely nonpartisan issue, and it's really unique that it's got appeal across the entire political spectrum. So if you're a nonprofit out there and, in an election year, maybe the calculus of things might be a little bit different. Or regardless, it's just very interesting to know that this is something that appeals across, all persuasions. So again, great news if you're rolling this out there. Kind of bucks the trend of people sometimes thinking, well, this might be, or Bitcoin specifically might be more aligned towards the more like libertarian, conservative type of persuasion. But what we're really seeing here is that actually isn't the case, and it bears out across all kinds of groups, which is fantastic for fundraisers. This is, again, another versatile tool to have in the fundraising toolkit. So that's going to do it for today's episode. Thanks very much for tuning in. In terms of what's coming down the pike, we're going to have a lot of great programming in the coming episodes. A couple things to keep in mind. We've got, again, Pietro out at Bitcoin 2024. Imagine there's going to be a lot of great information that comes out of that conference. A couple of fundraising announcements. We're going to be releasing some of our year-end fundraising toolkits very soon. So if you're a nonprofit out there interested in working with the Giving Block, especially around the year-end giving season, now would be a perfect time to give us a call and join the platform. We've got a bunch of great programming that we're about to put out there. We'll keep updating you on the fundraising stats. And again, if you've got a burning question, please reach out to me. We'll put a link to my email in the show notes. We'll put mine and Pietro's social handles as well if you want to reach out to us there. So with that, on behalf of Pietro heading down to Nashville and the rest of the Giving Block team, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.